Talk about emotional outbursts and setting off traumas. Some of those people have talked to me in a very sincere and open sort of way and have told me things they would tell no one else. And then there's this big cosmic reaction when they realize what they've done, and they try to back up real quick and cover their trail, man. But I, of course, I'm not going to say a word to anyone. I might talk about it in general terms at some time or another, but I'm not going to say a word to anyone about anything anybody ever told me in a top secret sort of way. Why would I? Unless we're finally to a place where people can handle the truth. And, when we see that truth for all of its dark ugliness, we can actually embrace that and let it be released from us. Because we know there's some kind of dark ugliness in us that creates this shit outside of us, man. It's just as simple as that. You've heard Carrie Ellis and Karina Shah talking about the quantum physics this week, where there really isn't anything outside of us that isn't created on the inside. And this is how that principle applies itself in this reality. Isn't it awesome? Man, you can see it. Plain as day, you just look, You have to give yourself a little quiet time. You got to get back in your easy chair, and you got to look and see what's really going on in here. You got to feel the love coming alive, And when I say gotta, well, you can do what you want. You gotta. Gotta ain't do nothing. But this is what you're going to do, babies, because this is what we're here for, This is what we do. We open our hearts. We hit this succinct stage in our life. We may have played a part in that cosmic game called Top Secret. Somebody out there listening probably is one of those beings and persons that's been in such positions, knows exactly what I'm talking about. At least the torment they try to implant in you. Somebody intelligent enough and divine enough to listen in here probably already has moved beyond that fear. And that's why they're here, because they're not afraid, I remember this one dude. He was 75 years old, and I encountered him in an offhanded sort of way. But name was George. This is a long time ago, and the guy's dead and gone now, so don't worry about it, babies. I'm not revealing anything that ain't known. But anyway, son of a gun, this guy had worked on the reverse engineering on the UFOs they'd captured back in the 40s, He lived in Las Vegas. They'd put him on an airplane with no windows on it, him and his fellow engineers. They'd fly him out from Las Vegas for a while, and then they'd land someplace, and it looked just like Nevada, but who the hell knows where it really was. And they'd commence to doing their top secret kind of work, and then they'd fly back, they'd work there for a few days, whatever it was, and then they'd fly back to Vegas in that same kind of windowless plane, Back then they were 707s, big old 4-engine jet things that knew nothing but gulp, gulp, gulp down the fuel and pollute the atmosphere. But a hell of a sweet flying plane, man. Gosh, one of the finest silver birds ever built, man. Even if it was kind of inefficient, it was beautiful and stable in the air, and just a fine, and talk about a utility vehicle. It was a fine vehicle, fine little Airbus, man. Nothing like the old boxcar things they're building now, but do notice that, wow, there's a whole lot less fatalities these days on the airlines than there used to be. The 707 didn't exactly want to stay in the air all the time. It had its faults and deficiencies. So there was a certain increase in the odds against you living to tell about it when you got on a 707. Forgive me for that, but it's just an interesting part of our aviation history that kind of tucks into that story rather well, But old George told me about all that stuff, and a lot of the stuff they did while they were there and so forth. Of course, a lot of it's scientific. I couldn't understand it if I wanted to. But now I know what he was really telling me, because much more has been revealed to me since then. Back then, this was like 70s, 80s, somewhere back in there, and I barely knew my arse from a hole in the ground. I was still just finding shit out, inside of myself and everywhere else too, Again, it's that reflective quality. What you find inside yourself, you tend to draw to yourself outside yourself, recreate it in the outside world, man, That explains a lot of my near-death experiences and so forth. A part of me didn't feel like it deserved to live. It had made some kind of heavy judgment on itself for something that happened in the way back when that didn't even matter in this lifetime, yet events and moments came in this lifetime in my childhood. The tiny baby childhood that reminded me of those events way back when, and so that set off kind of an industrial reaction inside, automatic, just like industry, and every bit as polluting, too. Took me a long time to come to some peaceful terms with that kind of energy, but I did, and I do, and I am, and I'm going, down now where I'm like down to the darkest, ugliest, meanest piece of doo-doo you ever saw, and I'm making peace with all of that, too, man. There's not an energy in this life that can't be well, the term that comes to me is neutralized. I hate to use that because that sounds like euthanized. It's not. Neutralized means taken out, the toxic effect, changed, transformed in a heartbeat. There's not a living entity anywhere, no matter what it be or how evilly it's been classified in this here world, that can't be in a heartbeat reformed right back into the divine, intelligent, ever-loving, and gracious heart that it truthfully is, can drop the illusion in a heartbeat of darkness, of meanness, coldness, and find great clarity in a heartbeat, in a moment. And it's been happening already, and that's why you're seeing some revelations of the truth about what's really been going on in the government. Here in the U.S. of A. and all across this world, this organization has had very little respect for human life from top to bottom, and they've chosen to consider most of humanity as human cattle and treat us like we're fodder, but they do it secretly. Openly, yeah, they hold great contempt for us too, but they try to make it look all gushy-gushy and lovey-lovey, and they go kiss babies and shit like that. What a farce, man. The same guy who killed your grandmother's kissing your granddaughter, man. Now figure that one out, huh? Son of a gun. Oh, that's the odd and wry and ironic humor in this reality. It's sick as all get out, man. And perverted beyond belief. But babies, we can embrace that. We don't have to accept it as, any part of ourselves. But we can embrace that energy and say, hey, babies, we see what you're trying to be. You're just mistaken in the way you're applying, don't you see? And just help it reform itself. Just help it become the life that it is. You see? That's how you deal with these reflective energies. This is how we end the psycho war upon the people of the earth committed by all governments on this earth. All of them are completely and totally, unseverably against the people they're supposed to be taking care of. The people that work in there, now I'm not talking about everybody, there's a lot of sincere hearts in the government, a lot of good people working there, yes, of course. So I'm not coloring everybody with the same brush. I'm talking in principle, in practical fact, how governments really despise the people they work for, or work with, or whatever it is, however that supposition is put forward, you see. Because the true reality is nobody needs government. And we aren't a bunch of stupid sheep that can be led around, by a pimple-faced little kid with a good rap. This is all BS, man. Politicians are just nonsense. And we know that, all of us. Voting is a farce. Freedom, that's an elusive thing. That's just another word for nothing left to lose. Thank you, Janice. That's true. True freedom comes when you can be in the heart, when you can face this stuff intelligently, creatively, graciously inside of yourself. Come to terms with all of it. There's been a lot of ugliness here. A lot. It's not just the government. Look what goes on in religions, for example, the revelations of what's been going on in Catholicism in particular. But I'm telling you, that's just the tip of the iceberg, baby. The reality of the abusive nature of humanity, one to another, especially when it's given a tiny bit of authority over others, oh my God, it just hasn't been able to handle that stuff. It continually and always becomes corrupted no matter what form it came in. You know, when it became a big organization, watch out, world, because boy, there's a dark side to that, like that bites you like crazy, and especially hates the innocence of children and likes to violate them, you know, because it feels so violated itself, because that's what happened to it when it was anyone. It just goes on, and it'd be an endless thing, except that people's hearts are changing. They won't just quietly accept this and go away anymore, because it's so-and-so or the Catholic Church or the U.S. government or anybody else. It doesn't matter who it is. There are no sacred cows. These are farces, sacred farces, man. You know, I mean, they were part of what held us in the superficial reality, kept some structure together so we could make it through. But the underbelly of it became so ugly, it was just unbelievable, man. Yet we can embrace all of that too and say, fine, we're done with it. Doesn't mean we're ever going to accept that as a part of our life ever again. But in this loving way, we can put it away. And we can remind everyone, everywhere, of their humanity, of their deep interconnection, soul to soul, heart to heart, with every human person that lives and still lives beyond the veil, too. You are connected with us all. All of us are together. We never separate. That is the illusion of death. And death is a frickin' joke. Laugh it back to life and see what I mean, babies. You know, when the doorway's open to you, turn it around. Just say, hey, babies, come on back here. Let's dance, man. Let's party. Angels, ancestors, I can appreciate you're here to carry me on home, but guess what? I'm not that tired. Let's party. Get down here. Bring that light and love here, babies. Let's open the door. Somebody's got to do it, and somewhere, sometime, somebody is doing it, maybe even right now. You know, dealing with all of it. There's nothing here we have to accept as a reality, not even death. There's nothing here we have to that says we're powerless against these forces that seem to be uniting against the people. Now, how in the hell where does such despicable behavior come from? How can a person mount a war against its own self? Yet that's what basically the suppression of peoples by the various governments across this earth boils down to. A disrespect for oneself. A casual flippance about the nature of life. Living and dying, who cares? You know, that kind of thing. It's like just cold. You know, deadly. And it doesn't even know its own bloodlines, its own warmth in its blood. It feels like a reptile, you know, it feels cold, you know, and empty and alone, and therefore pissed off, and that's why it's mad at all the people and wants to contain and control you. Plus, it sees you as rather retarded by now. It's really got some judgmental shit going on. But remember, this reflects something from inside of ourselves. And I think it's kind of like the self-judgment that goes on subpsychologically in every person that be. You know, and it's some kind of guilty thing, some kind of shame we've adopted into ourselves that we're all running like crazy to stay ahead of. And this is what creates all the BS out here that we have to put up with, or thought we did. That is no more, babies. Love is here, and love does even the score. Wow. I just reminded me of something. You know, there's one way of saying it, and there's another way of saying it. You get my meaning, babies? You know, you can hear this same message from different persons, and you're just not going to hear it the same. You know, there's a clarity involved when you speak from the heart. There's an incredible energy that goes with everything that you speak, everything that you express. All of the feeling goes with that, you see. Radiant love from 9,000 feet high here in the Rocky Mountain sky. You betcha, man. We got it raining down on you all over the place. Raining through you, actually. You know, passing through you, stopping and inheriting and inhabiting the whole of your heart and awakening the presence inside of that. So you can really understand what the hell I'm saying and doing here, you know, and see the movement of the heart within yourself that brings me, the oracle, forward to repeat back to you in a magnified sort of way just what the hell's going on inside of you today, babies, you see. We're all dealing with these energies in this life, one way or another, at the same base level. Now, it might be expressed in a billion different ways in your life. Perhaps it's troubles at work, etc., in the family, etc., etc. Darlings, it pretty much works the same way. If there's difficulties outside, deal with them as you have to, and do it so creatively. Don't let the authoritarian dickheads lie you into, your own deathbed. Don't let them give you treatments that are going to kill you, etc. Be smart about it. Pay attention. Use the cures that make sense. Use those that come from nature, that are provided naturally. We're starting to find out now that there's not a disease on earth that isn't curable and has been cured many times over. They just suppress the information as much as they possibly can. When I say they, again, we're talking about governmental types, those that work in super secret ways. Not everybody, but there's a good share of them doing it, babies. Those are the ones we got to love right back into their heart. Right now, in this moment in time, help them get some consciousness. Help them get some courage, some strength in their heart, so they won't weakly go along with stuff they know is completely abhorrent and totally against humanity and ungracious as all get out to boot. Man, the revelations that are coming forward. See, this is the reason why I'm talking about this shit this morning, because there are more revelations coming forward every day as to the dastardly nature of those in super secret positions of power in our government and the shit they've done all across this earth. And it's not just our government, it's all of them. But ours has been particularly heinous, And the things I know about already that I've seen in the press make our guys look, make the Nazis look innocent. Our guys are completely corrupted right down to the core and intellectually justify it all. I mean, shit. Wow. Oh, anyway. And again, the reflective nature says, if we end this conflict, if we can locate and find whatever conflict inside of us that's creating that outside there, oh, baby, it's over with. You take it to the streets by not taking it to the streets, by correcting it inside of yourself. And as you do, other hearts are united with your heart, as you well know. If you listen to this show very often, babies, you feel it right now, the unification of our heart, you see. So as you proceed inside of yourself to purify, to get the right kind of attitude going on towards every moment in the presence of your being, everything that you remember or are creating in this moment, all of it. To get peace, in other words, by facing truth in this loving sort of way, seeing the higher aspects being served in all of your life, in every moment that you live. That really helps a lot, man. That brings peace forward. That brings change big time in this reality. Because as you awaken to the higher aspects in your life and begin to live them, well, then others do too, and that includes folks that work in these positions of top secrecy and perform such nasty stuff. Do you think that's come to an end? Oh, babies. And in a hurry too, because hearts that are conscious cannot abide by such practice, such abhorrent practices. There I am, stumbling over my words, are coming out too early and too late. Got to get myself relegated back together here, talking about some stuff that I really don't like talking about. But at the same time, it's stuff we got to deal with. It's part of the transition, part of the change that's here. Just part of dealing with the practical reality in which we live, our human side, babies. Hoo-wee. But it really isn't. That's the inhumane side. The human side is ever-loving. It's just a good heart, and it always has been and always will be. And it always means to do right by every person that lives, most especially the person it inhabits, babies. That's just how we truthfully are. That's the reality of humanity. We're caring, sharing, loving human beings. And you take most of us one-on-one, not all of us, but most of us one-on-one, we're pretty pleasant people and we really give a shit. But you take, put us in an office environment, put us in a military environment, etc., relegate us out into these groups and we become, a product of group thought. And we don't seem to keep it together in that decent sort of way. Well, babies, this is why love has come here to play. This is why there is this awakening going on. It's time, babies. And We just need to realize beyond the coldness. We need to see the warmth in everything, the love in all, and let go of these, God-forsaken practices that don't do nothing but hurt and kill and maim people for no good reason. Guys, if you could see the uselessness of the efforts, when you move in that direction, wow, you'd back away in a hurry. So that's about what's happening, really. You're starting to see the truth. What's really been going on here. And you're going to have to see it in this way and understand people were dumbed down to such a point that such things were allowable, even if it was top secret. There is a consciousness, an awareness that knows inside of every being that this ain't right and this shouldn't be happening. There is that awareness. That's how we undo it too, babies. Because there is that awareness. Even the folks performing, I don't care if they're manufactured human clones. They have an awareness. That's just assuming that anybody could even do that. They have an awareness that goes with the turf. A conscious awareness that they stuff and put away and step aside from, etc. That's why they're usually got heart problems and so on and so forth, people in those positions, because they have suppressed all of their natural inclinations and allowed a whole nother program to be implanted over the top of that, where they operate in more of a robotic way. And that's what gives human beings such a sheep-like quality. It's not that we are sheep, it's just that our programming has made us that way, you see. That's what happens to those people. Well, anyway, common conscious in the heart changes all of that. You see it, you let go of it. If you see that you're programmed, well, yeah, you might get pissed. That might be one reaction, but the normal reaction would be, say, wow, geez, thank God I saw that. Now I can be done with it, That's the normal reaction. Though you've been taught and trained not to be that way, you've been taught and trained that fighting is the way. Do you see how they've taken fight, conflict, and made it the essential reason for being? They've taught you that conflict always leads to resolution. Well, it don't. Well, in the long haul it do. But, the reality is there's no conflict. These are just little dramas we create in order to live through the experience of them. That's exactly what we're dealing here with on that militaristic super secret level. And you got to understand, too, that even these beings, because they're so cunning and deceptive, etc., have been misled, too. There's been a huge deception played upon them. They thought they had a military might in space. They thought they were building up some super secret technologies, etc., that would allow them to conquer and dominate whole planets and galaxies and shit. I mean, there was big dreams, Some mighty plans laid, babies, We're going to free all the masses into our kind of slavery. Yes, indeedy, It don't matter if they're little cricket-looking characters that live on Pluto or what. Whatever they are, we're going to do it, man. That was the attitude. The whole gung-ho bunch of BS, But, we all got to have something to do to keep ourselves entertained while we're passing through the age of darkness. So I suppose a little poetic drama like that has its place. It sure was a crock of hoo-hoo, and, they've been so completely misled, they don't even know who they've been dealing with. They think they've been dealing with races of ETs that were less than colorful. Oh, babies, you got to understand the deceivers are the most easiest to deceive. And that, light can be just as cunning as dark. I mean, there's Koyote Medicine everywhere. Koyote Medicine is what makes us real, what makes us right. Koyote Medicine is the only way we can equitize with all these energies we're talking about and get it all back in a familiar turf and get it all over with. It's time, babies. It's time to throw off the yoke of injustice and pain and stupidity that's so reigned here, It's time to let go of the petty tyrants in this life, to turn our back on that bullshit, because we don't need it. We don't need a boss watching over us, supervising our every activity. We don't need anything but love and truth, honesty in all of our dealings because we care. You know, it just happens automatically. You don't have to think about it. You can't make yourself honest anyway, you know. Whoever thought you could obey regulations out of their frickin' mind? You're only going to do what your heart allows you to, what your consciousness at the state that it's in will allow you to. And that's why they took the programming so long ago. You wouldn't even know where it was, way before this scientific age, man. So people wouldn't realize it. You get dumbed down to successive generations. I'm telling you, some of the last 100 years have been some of the darkest times in all of the times of Earth, including the time when we blew ourselves apart. Not that many 20-something thousand years ago, man, blew the whole Earth up with atomic bombs, and a whole bunch around us, too. There's still residue of that kicking around in more ways than one. What we're dealing with right now is kind of a repeat of everything that happened back then, only this time with a really refined outcome. Atlantis, well, it let us down, and therefore it had to be let down, and it went away. You know, bam, it's gone, you know. Well, same thing's going to happen to some cities here because they don't really exist, but that's another story. But let's just say Babylon's been had by big old granddad and grandma too, baby. We started cooking up a little different. You know, we learn from activities of others. We grow and, you know, sometimes employ one another's tactics in the aid and assistance to us all. So, in other words, a little coyote magic is a perfect thing to have at times like these, you know, because then you can have a sense of humor about all this and you won't get caught up in the macabre side of it. That's the main thing I'm trying to address this morning, is don't let the heavy darkness of these nasty things that have been going on in the background that are being revealed now, don't let the heavy darkness of that overwhelm you or put you into the state of being where you think there's got to be a civil war or anything like that. War has never resolved anything. It just kills people and traumatizes them forever and creates more problems than we know what to do with. But it does bring out some real sweet loving moments too in desperation, babies. People will do and love what they won't do otherwise because of social mores and so on, normal shyness, etc. But in extreme times, extreme love is found too. That's one of the positive sides of it. Now, one moment of love, as I've told you before, 100,000 years of humanity can go on in bullshit darkness because 2 people, 4 people, 10 people, whatever the number was, found love, a real loving moment in desperate times, and took it because it was there. And they saw no other choice. You know, when life's fleeting, babies, you'd be amazed how quickly you will adapt into doing things that you otherwise wouldn't do. You want the fullness, you want the richness. If it's your last breath, you want it to be a good one. You know, this happens in some people. They have those noble characteristics. They're born with them. And somehow the aggravation of insanity and war brings out that great love and noble moments, you know, in love can occur in the darkest of times. Of course, they're quiet, secretly held in the background, of course. But even then, they're highly modifying even the outcome of the wars they're living in. You know, it's a little bit of love goes so far. It's the most powerful thing there is. All of the rest of this that we're talking about is a fear-based mentality which leads to programming, conditioning, stupidity, cold-hearted activity. When you're programmed, you're a frickin' computer. You ain't got no heart. You know what I mean? Well, basically. Fortunately, you can't totally put away the human heart no matter what you do. You can't divide us that greatly from ourselves, because then we'd cease to be. And there'd be no point in playing the game anymore, would there? That's the other aspect of it, too, you got to consider here. As these revelations are being made, you got to remember the matrix side of it as well, which is, this is a synthetic and holographic world. Understand, such things as this violence and hatred and so forth cannot occur in normal life. So we created a warped place, which we call a hologram or a holographic reality. I call it a big old movie. And we're all actors in a great big play, man. A great big grand stage here, baby. There's cameras everywhere. It's like the Truman Show and then some, man. But babies, we can step back from the dark and just see it in a lark. Just be done with it. That's all. You know, let the love come forward. Understand why we had to go through such dark things. You know, understand that the heart, if nothing else, was proving its durability to itself. That it could endure such shit and still be loving and still come out of it intact. And babies, that's the living proof of the real revolution that's going on right now inside of you and me and everybody else too. Because our heart is here to liberate us and set us free from all of this ugliness. It's just a matter of following along with the flow of this heart, the feeling heart. And babies, you know, as these revelations come forward, if we embrace them with graciousness, we can easily let them go and be done with that forever. And never see it replicated or repeated again, ever. I'm talking about things as heinous as, you know, mass genocides, rapes. They just love that shit. You know, rapes of children, everything. We just let that, we'll never see this shit again. It's time to deal with the basic needs inside by addressing everything from this aspect and angle of a loving heart. In this way do we dispense with needs that create all these diversions that we're talking about. The emptiness can be filled because we are not empty. We are full. The emptiness is the illusion. The idea that we created all this and therefore we're responsible for it. Yeah, that's an illusion too. See, in the responsibility is the harshness of judgment. Respond, you know, we do. React, we do. Act, we do. And hopefully responsibly from the heart in a loving way. You don't have to worry about it. There is no responsibility. All things created in innocence. That's why such heinous acts can occur here, because people unknowingly commit them. Again, I point out it's programming. And it's genuine programming. You can see it within yourself, the effects of it, because everybody is programmed one way or another. But we're reprogramming now. We're changing the way this formula works. That's why you're going to see a whole lot more really divine revelations too. Kind of counteract all the ugliness that's been going on here forever and a day. You know, babies, just be ready. Just be, you know, in that loving space. Give yourself as much time as you need to be in there. And as difficult as life is, just love every breath, every moment that you're living. No matter the difficulties you're facing, you know. We're dedicating this show today to those that are facing, you know, the last difficulties. You know, finally coming to the place where those difficulties have created enough mayhem in their life that they're not going to live this way anymore. They're going to do what it takes to change. And no longer be a victim of anything. But be loving in everything, in all that you do, and all that you see. And in this way, heal yourself of whatever could be wrong in your life, in your body, in your reality, whatever it is. Anything that's in the way, baby, got to melt away today. Because this is your time. It's time to practice. Unwind in the divine love that you are, babies. So says Grandpa here on the Koyote Medicine Show. And babies, you know it must be so. It's time to let it go, man. You know, we fought this war long enough inside of ourselves and everywhere else and everybody else too. We've seen the enemy is us. There is no enemy. We let it go now. Be done with it. No need to fear. Rise up. The love is here. Let yourself be strong in the heart. Just be what you are, babies. Yeah. Just let it come through. Step by step. You get it done, too. So says Grandpa here on the Koyote Medicine Show. Only on the Hazy Radio Network. Babies, we getting the sunrise up now? We're starting to find out how to do it right, or at least stumble through it intelligently. Something like that, baby. Oh yeah, right here on the network called Hazy, babies. Grandpa Coyote loving ye early in the day. Oh, babies, that's the way.